Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Navigating Trump 2.0. This is the show that takes a look at the week that was in Washington, D.C. through the lens of this second Trump administration. Joining me once again this week, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody and host of CBN's Quick Start podcast, Dan Andros. We had some big news, gentlemen, on Thursday afternoon as former FBI Director James Comey was indicted for allegedly lying to Congress regarding the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Lindsay Halligan, President Trump's former personal attorney, who he appointed to lead the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, made the indictments. And over the weekend, Trump posted on Truth Social a post specifically at Attorney General Pam Bondi, scolding her for not indicting Comey sooner, as well as other Trump opponents, Adam Schiff and Letitia James, saying, quote, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now." Trump officials believe Comey and others at the Justice Department lied and manufactured evidence against Trump as part of the 2016 Russia probe. So, David, let me get your initial thoughts on this. There's, of course, been the Democrats who are claiming that the president is using his power improperly here and using the DOJ to go after political enemies. Of course, the Trump MAGA world is ecstatic about this. What are your thoughts?
Well, they're ecstatic for now, but I feel like there's a womp womp coming, and the womp womp could be the fact that the evidence may just not hold. Unless there's more evidence here, MAGA could be in for a major deflation, not to mention the president of the United States. And, you know, I know the president is saying this is simple stuff, right? Comey lied. Here's part of the problem. Well, there's a lot of problems here. First of all, Andrew McCabe actually never said that Comey authorized the leak. He never said that. What he said is that McCabe said that he was the one, as in McCabe was the one that authorized the leak. He could do that, and then told Comey about it afterwards. That he apparently, that this idea that Comey directly authorized it, that's something Ted Cruz had said in 2020. That was paraphrased from Ted Cruz. That's not, if you read the Inspector General report, that's not what McCabe is saying. McCabe is saying, yeah, he told Comey about it, but after he had authorized it, and Comey said, hey, that's a pretty good idea. Well, that's much different than saying you lied, to Congress, saying that you knew all about it. It's much different. So there's already a legal problem here on the perjury charge, and the obstruction of justice charge is related to the perjury charge. So I'm not a lawyer, nor do I want to be, by the way. But the truth of the matter is that there are going to be some problems here unless ... there is more evidence to come. And there may well be. We just don't know. So that's the caveat here. But, for now, MAG is happy in the sense that, Comey is, Comey might get the perp walk, if you will, that they want. But I don't know about what comes next. I think that's a concern. And there's other concerns, too, about where we're going on a slippery slope, but we can get to that in a moment.
Yeah, we're going to get into the politics of this and certainly the slippery slope you're talking about. One quick question about on the merits of the case, David, as you mentioned, there have been other attorneys in place here who have and other areas of the DOJ who have said that there isn't enough evidence to go forward with a case like this. And there's been reporting that even one of Halligan's own aides is skeptical that there is enough evidence here to go forward with an indictment, because the history of the DOJ has always been you don't put forth an indictment unless you have a really strong case to go forward and actually win the prosecution. And previous folks who have been urged to go after Comey here for these charges have decided that there isn't enough evidence there. So, getting you kind of win the news cycle victory here on Thursday and Friday to finish up the week. But like you said, if this ends up not being a strong enough case, couldn't this end up hurting Trump? Couldn't this end up making them look worse?
Yeah. No doubt. Dan, I don't know if you want to weigh in, but sure, for sure. I think John Bolton would be probably next. You've got others as well. I'm drawing a blank on the other guy. Clapper, James Clapper. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I think what we're seeing here is a result of all of the lawfare that just happened to President Trump. I mean, look at all the charges and the things that have been thrown at President Trump. I mean, you have the FBI raids at Trump's, Mar-a-Lago. I mean, all of this stuff was going on and infuriated people. And actually, if you remember, I'm not even sure how well Trump was doing, like early on, like before he announced he was going to run again. And then all the lawfare happened, and it was like he just zoomed right on top of the poll. Like that just angered people and frustrated people. And then it continued, and it kept on going in a lot of different ways and a lot of different forms. So I think what we're seeing here is sort of okay, if this is how we're going to play the game, we're going to create different sort of charges out of thin air. We're going to mix this federal charge with this federal charge to come up with something against Trump. And Fani Willis, all this, and she's getting thrown out now. And I think that's the climate that was set here for the past several years against Trump. And so I think there are a lot of people saying, at least on Trump's side of things, saying, we need to hit back. If this is how they're going to play, we can't just sit back and take this. And so I think that's what you're seeing here, even if they know this is going to be a difficult case to prove. I mean, what the Democrats essentially did was they wanted to be able to say, like, indicted Trump and the felon, President Trump. They wanted to be able to say all those things. And so I think because of that, you're seeing Republicans willing to say, all right, well, if this is how we're going to tarnish and taint people, then this is the route we're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, good. Yeah.
I was going to say, not to go kindergarten here, but, Democrats started it. It's like, who started it? Well, the MAGA's going to say Democrats started it. And you know what? They did. They did. So, that's not even in contention. That's not even an argument at this point. And so now Trump is doing what they'll call it justice. And then the question is, and here we are on the slippery slope, what happens next? There's a Democrat president in 4 years, 8 years. And then what? Now we're not talking about politicians. Are we talking about conservative Christians? Are we talking about, the friends of a president? We're going down a very slippery slope here.
The one I forgot to mention, David, and you just mentioned going outside of officials. I mean, when you were talking about the DOJ standard, I remember that exactly. And you're right, because that's what happened to Mark Houck. Out of nowhere, right. Mark Houck got federal charges thrown at him over this incredibly minor incident that the guy didn't even show up to court for. And all of a sudden he's got the, FBI raiding his home, armed agents showing up at his house with his kids there. And you're like, what is this? And then we're seeing like granny pro-life protesters that sat outside of a clinic getting the full weight of a FACE Act violation thrown at them and tossed in jail. I mean, it's more than just what happened to Trump, which was in another escalation, but I think we saw this in a lot of different sectors.
And let me just also say, John, I'm sorry, real quick. I apologize. Let me just say a couple of things. With the Brendan Carr thing, right, with Jimmy Kimmel, it's the same type of thing with what Trump did on Truth Social. In other words, excuse me, Brendan Carr came out and kind of stepped in it, right? And you really should have said what, the public, go ahead, I dare you, we're going to take care of it, kind of a Gestapo type of language. And then Trump goes on Truth Social, about a week and a half ago, and says to Pam Bondi, where are you, Pam? Come on, let's go. Let's move it. And then all of a sudden, a week and a half later, Comey's indicted. Now, I know there was a statute of limitations coming up, so they had to get moving. But the point is that, Trump goes on Truth Social, and then a week and a half later, his attorney general is saying, absolutely, I'm going to jump in. How high, Mr. President? That's what it seems like. And so, the problem here is that, and here's the problem that MAGA has, is that let's go ahead and substitute Biden for Trump, and let's substitute Bondi for Merrick Garland. If Biden had said what Trump said, and then Merrick Garland had then indicted X person in MAGA land, MAGA would be fuming at this. But that's what Trump just did. You see what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I don't like where we're at. I don't like where we're at all. Yeah. I'm not now to be clear, I'm not saying Comey, he may be guilty, he may not. I don't know. That's not what the courts will figure that out. I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have brought charges, even though it may be difficult to prove. But I'm just saying I just don't like the climate where we're at right now.
Right. Do we want this to be the standard? That's kind of like the where the dust settles on this. It's like, okay, right, like you said, whether or not who started it, do we keep doing it now and just make this the norm, or do we want to be Venezuela or what?
Yeah,
and bring a stronger case. If you're going to bring a case, bring a much stronger case. If you're going to get justice, get justice.
Right. I mean, I think a person could argue that the cases that were brought against Donald Trump, there were certainly some of those cases that strained credibility for sure. To me, the Mar-a-Lago case is not one of those cases, but I think certainly arguments to be made that the New York case, that certainly was one that I think most people agree, like that was not wise. That certainly seemed like political retribution. And you can understand, I certainly do understand why Trump supporters want to go after these people. And I understand why people wanted to go after Trump. When you're political enemies, you want to bring them down. That's been going on for decades. What we've always had, though, is we've had these firewalls inside the government and the Justice Department, or at least we're supposed to have these firewalls, because because every president is going to have political enemies. You don't want them going after people or directing the FBI with a hand and saying, okay, now I want you to go after John Bolton, and now we're going to go after take Secret Service protection away from Kamala Harris, and okay, we're going to go we're going to go after this group, we're going to go after this group. It's supposed to be the evidence. The evidence is supposed to lead the Justice Department to pursue things, and I'm not naive enough to think that, administrations don't have some influence or impact, but there's supposed to be a firewall here, and we're just seeing it drop. And David, you're right. I think it's a slippery slope, because Republicans are not always going to have control. Democrats are not always going to have control. At some point, if you don't stop this progression the way it's going, it's going to lead to a place that America doesn't look exactly like the way it did before. And I'm with you, David. I'm not comfortable with where we are right now with this.
Well, I'll just say this, and Dan, I'm curious to get your take, but not that you're doing this, but I don't want people to put this on Trump and retribution. That's what you all hear all day long on MSNBC. Once again, nanny, nanny, boo, boo, kindergarten, but Democrats started this. I mean, they just did. I mean, Mark Houck, you mentioned, there's so many others. What about all of the FACE Act violations as well? There were a lot of pro-life protesters thrown in jail. And we go parent school board meetings. The DOJ under Biden, was horrible, absolutely horrible to conservative Christians and many others. So let's not just say this is Trump retribution and he started it. Absolutely right. Not. That's not true. That's not true.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. Like I said, this has been building for many years now, for sure. Well, we'll see how that case develops here over the next few weeks and months, and whether or not the case is strong enough against Comey for it to move on and for him to face real jeopardy. He's not concerned. He put out a video on Instagram, of all places. It's where the kids are. Apparently, I'm not on Instagram all that much, but where he put out a video proclaiming his innocence. So we'll see how that goes. Also this week, we had Donald Trump at the United Nations. Guys, he endured a broken escalator, a teleprompter malfunction, and audio issues in the room as he made his first speech to the UN General Assembly here in Trump 2.0. He had harsh words for the international body, criticizing Europe's immigration and climate change policies, using harsh language in doing so. Not a surprise, the tone that he had at the United Nations General Assembly, critical of the body and trying to, I think, shake Europe out of some of the policies that they have been enacting over the last decade and a half, specifically with immigration and climate change. David, what was your biggest takeaway from the president's speech?
His quote where he said, "Your countries are going to hell," is what he said. And it's true. In terms of the prompter, and listen, you know me, guys, I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy. I'm not that guy, but I'm sorry. The prompter, the escalator, the audio. Then we know about reports beforehand, the day before, where UN staffers were thinking about potentially maybe doing a little sabotage. There were reports about that. I'm sorry. I thought it was all staged. No doubt about that. And by the way, Trump got his retribution, if you want to call it that. Where he was only supposed to speak for 15 minutes. Instead, he spoke for 55. But I'll just one last point. The United States gives the United Nations about $12 billion or so a year, $10 to $12 billion a year. That's been going on for a while, adjusted for inflation. The Trump administration has already cut $1 billion of that back, and right now they're on par to give about $4 billion less than they did in their first term. It was about 10 to 11 billion in their first term. It could be about 7 billion, 6 billion this time around. Dan.
Yeah, Dan, what was your big takeaway, Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at what's happening with the comments, I mean, particularly like Russia and Ukraine. And we're looking at that in the president's comments here, talking about basically turning around and switching this thing around. And, was kind of, I don't know if we're getting into that later, but that was kind of a big one for me. Yeah, I mean, well, then I'll go there. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll go there then. Yeah, I mean, I think that was particularly interesting to me because obviously it's a stark contrast of what he said earlier. And it just seems like he's done with Vladimir Putin. Like he's absolutely like, okay, this guy's not budging, which is what a lot of us thought ahead of time. And, credit to President Trump. He tried, right? He tried to get this guy to negotiate and to do something, concede something, and he's just not willing to do it. And I think Trump has just come to that realization, and he's like, all right. I mean, and this is what happens. Like, if you do this to Trump does not care what he said, 5 minutes ago, trying to be nice to you. He's immediately going to turn around and say, okay, if that's the way you want to play it, I'm coming at you full steam ahead.
And here's the one thing that Putin didn't count on is that Trump would actually turn on Putin and all of a sudden be positive in terms of helping Ukraine out, because Putin had always thought, and Putin always felt like his ultimate trump card, if you will, was that there was no way that Trump and MAGA was going to support Ukraine financially and otherwise with weapons and all that, right? Because he had continued to say, no, we don't want any of this. We're not Ukraine. It was anti-Ukraine from the Trump administration. And Putin thought he had that card to play. Well, ho. Now we got a whole different ball game. Now Putin's got to be wondering, crap, now what? Because if Trump goes down the support Ukraine route in terms of militarily, and financially, that puts Putin in a much different position. MAGA's not going to be happy. That's true. But you know what? Trump has shown with the Epstein stuff and other stuff to just say, you know what, MAGA, you might not be happy, but I created MAGA, so leave me alone.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Trump's 180 here with Ukraine and the support that he now is seemingly giving Zelensky very, very publicly. And in his meeting with Turkish President Erdogan this week at the White House, publicly urging Erdogan to stop buying gas and oil from Russia. And that seems to be the big lever that he has right now, is trying to convince folks. And especially he said in his news conference, he's got a very close relationship with Erdogan. It doesn't necessarily mean that Erdogan is going to do what the president says, but that's the lever he's trying to push right now, and encouraging Ukraine. Hey, listen, get back. This was the most interesting thing to me. Get back the land that they took from you. Not even saying at this point, just let's stop the lines where they are. Everybody take home what they've already won and let's start over. He's encouraging Ukraine to keep up the fight and to win back the land that they originally started with. So I don't know how that's possible either. You're right. I think Trump is just done with Putin, and I think Trump feels like Putin played him, which I think we all knew was happening in the beginning. But I agree. I don't think it was a wrong thing to try and get Putin to come to the table with a little bit of honey. But clearly he just decided to drink down the whole jar of honey. Like he went Winnie the Pooh on Trump's honey offer. And that's well, and I just think that's something like that you don't want to do if you're an adversary of President Trump, because I think that is the thing that fires him up. If somebody's out there trying to humiliate him on the national stage, especially when he's extending an olive branch to you. I mean, think about that. What American president has been that diplomatic with Russia in this sort of a situation? Like, it's unprecedented, I think. And for him to do that, that was a big kind of deal for him to do that. And to have it thrown back in your face, and especially when you're somebody like President Trump, who has a history of, if you're like, loyalty is a big deal for him. And, to be crossed like that, I think that's I say all that, John, because when you say the land situation, well, wow, it's like a 180. Well, that's why, because Putin just stuck it to him on the national stage. And he's like, all right, you're going to do that. We're getting Ukraine's land back. Let's see how you like this. Yeah, it might be one of those things that's easier said than done, of course.
Correct.
But
yeah.
One of the other things that came out of the UN this week was that it sounds as though the president outlined a multi-step plan for Gaza after the war with Israel is over, which will happen at some point. A detailed plan that has the support of former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and it appears to have been warmly received by Middle East nations. It feels like a real step forward on trying to put a stop to the killing in the Middle East. Dan, I know this is just, you've got to get agreement from Israel. You've got to get agreement from Hamas, and you certainly have to have one of the ways that this would work is pressure from these Arab nations on Hamas to agree to whatever this deal was that was being talked about. But Israel's got to get on board too, and it doesn't really sound like Israel's ready to get on board yet either. They want to eliminate the threat of Hamas. They want to eliminate Hamas entirely, and it's hard to argue with that stance, despite they're taking PR hits for sure in the international community, especially Netanyahu, big time.
Yeah, Netanyahu was at the UN and gave a fiery speech earlier today. And in that, I mean, he basically criticized, of course, Hamas, but he also said, I think 90% was the number he said, 90% of Palestinians support Hamas. And so to your point about them not really being excited to come to the table for these deals, it's like, well, how many times are they going to come to the table and then only to have hostages not be returned? Terrorists still attacking them, Iran bearing down on them. I mean, there's only so much they can take, and I feel like they're at the breaking point of these deals. And, hard as Trump may try, I mean, it's almost an impossible task to get all of those figures who, one side doesn't want the other side to exist. So trying to get those types of people to the table is obviously a tall task.
We should point out also we're taping Friday early afternoon, and Friday morning President Trump came out and talked to reporters at Marine One before he went to New York, and he said, "quote we believe we have a deal on Gaza," is what he said, whatever that means. So we'll see what that means Friday afternoon and going into the weekend. But he announced, in essence, the old announcement on the on the White House lawn on the way to Marine One with a helicopter blaring in the background saying we got a deal on Gaza, whatever that means exactly. But he did say this week as well that he's telling Netanyahu, you're not annexing the West Bank, which is a non-negotiable for the Middle Eastern countries there. So obviously, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, but just all of those Middle Eastern countries say, if Netanyahu annexes the West Bank, then all bets are off. And Trump said, no, he's not going to do that. He won't do that.
Well, last thing before we wrap up, the government shutdown that could be coming on Wednesday, it certainly sounds as though it's coming to pass. Earlier this week, President Trump was supposed to meet with Democratic congressional leaders at the White House to talk about the budget and the impasse between really, it's in the Senate right now, Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats. The House last week already passed a temporary, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, passed a continuing resolution that would temporarily fund the government as they continue negotiations, but not enough Democratic senators in the Senate agreed to go along with that continuing resolution. The president says that the Democrats want to continue funding billions of dollars in health care for illegal immigrants, and they want to continue funding things for liberal policies that the American people rejected when they elected Donald Trump. Democrats say they want to ensure all Americans that deserve health care get health care, and they want to make sure that they say that money that's been taken out of health care with the One Big Beautiful Bill is put back into the legislation. So both sides are blaming the other right now, David, on the government shutdown. It certainly sounds as though there's going to be a government shutdown on Wednesday. But you know what? We said that the last time this came around, and then Senator Schumer went ahead and was able to get Senate Democrats to agree on a continuing resolution that has taken us to where we are right now. How are you reading the tea leaves for next week?
Well, and you just made my point that I'm about to make. The fact that Schumer agreed last time is exactly why there will be a government shutdown this time, because he got so much flack when he agreed last time from the left of his party, and he'll never do that again. Remember, he's running for U.S. Senate, and AOC is smiling in the background. So I guarantee you that there will be a shutdown because Schumer won't allow a continuing resolution to go forward because he got burned last time from the left. It's really that simple. And this is not hard to figure out. So therefore, there will be a shutdown. The question is how long will it go? Maybe a week, 2 weeks, whatever. They'll figure it out. But the politics here are not with the Democrats. They just aren't, because all the Republicans are saying is they're not asking for more. They're not asking to change the deal. They're asking for, wait for it, a continuing resolution. In other words, the same thing that the Schumer and the Democrats agreed to back in March. So this idea that, Republicans are changing the game at the last moment, they're not. It's just Democrats are feeling too much pressure to strike a deal at this point.
Yeah, Dan, is that your read of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I just think, listen, can you trust a guy who puts cheese on a raw burger on a grill? I mean, I just don't know that you could do it. But yeah, I mean, this is just one of those things on the government shutdowns where, I mean, I'm kind of in the corner going, hey, I'd like a smaller government. Let's go ahead and see who's essential and who's not. But kidding aside, I mean, I know there are jobs at stake, and that's unfortunate for people. But yeah, I mean, I'll just wait for the dust to settle on the shenanigans.
Also, the fact that Chuck Schumer's last name begins with S, it just works, right? Schumer shutdown. It sounds tidy. It just sounds, it's
alliteratively
for him.
speaking, it really works.
It does work just from a copy standpoint. Yeah.
Right. and I agree. I think just from a standpoint of history, a continuing resolution, Democrats have always argued in favor of a continuing resolution to keep things open while negotiating. I mean, nobody's saying negotiations are over if there's a continuing resolution. It's obviously going to be an uphill battle. I was mixing three metaphors at once there. An uphill battle for Democrats to get Republicans to move on some of these different things. But the point is not to get the full agreement right now. It's to just, okay, another can kicking down the road, which is something Republicans have traditionally hated, but in the House, but they ended up doing it this time around. So we will leave it there, gentlemen, and we'll see whether or not all of these things are still on our list of things to talk about next week, because every week brings new things to discuss. David Brody, Dan Andros, thank you once again for being on Navigating Trump 2.0.
Thanks, guys.
All right.